Welcome to this week's Food Sports Central, the podcast of the World Food Championships. I am, as always, your host, Mark Conway, and we are, man, it just seems like every time we do one of these, we are just that much closer to final table. A little further away from the World Food Championships this past November, and a whole lot closer to finding out who the new World Food Champion will be. A lot of you have been watching our reigning 2022 World Food Champion Preston on Next Level Chef on Fox. He is competing on the Gordon Ramsay show as we speak, and that opportunity really comes off the heels of winning the World Food Championship. So it's not just the big foam check for $100,000. It's not just the accolades of winning. There are so many things that happen when you're part of FoodSport, and especially the World Food Championships. And coming out of final table, man, it seems to open a lot of doors in a lot of different directions. We've seen people with cookbooks come out of this. We've seen people with shows in their local markets come out of this. We've seen a lot of people compete on some other food streaming TV somewhere. But all in all, this really can be and should be a launching pad to a career in food media or as an exec chef in the kitchen or starting your own restaurant. It's all in how you use the opportunity. So we've been meeting all of our food sport champions, and with each category, you kind of get a different perspective. You have a different person cooking, you have a different style of cooking. We've heard from bacon, we've heard from barbecue, we've heard from even vegetarian, and in each one of these has kind of looked at going into Dallas one way and looked at going into the final table another way, and so there's been different takes on it. So that's one of the things that I think has been really interesting with talking to our category champs is not just hearing about their story and kind of how this has, you know, maybe even change their thinking about food sport by winning a category and heading to final table, but also just very unique takes on what all of this means to them. And so today we're going to be talking with the person who came out of a dessert category that really featured some new techniques. And we've said that in every category. I'll be the first to admit, yes, we've saw new techniques, new abilities, new recipes, new flavor profiles, but dessert really keeps evolving, at least on par with everybody else, if not a little more, because there are so many ways to go with dessert. How sweet do you go? How savory do you go? Do you bring in some ingredients that maybe people aren't familiar with, or do you really stay tried and true to traditional recipes in order to execute perfectly? Which, again, when we talk about eat methodology, execution is a ginormous part. So if you write a recipe that says you're going to do A, B, and C, you better do A, B, and C pretty much perfectly. And then, of course, the top 10 round, which became the top 11, ended up with the master judges panel that our competitors had to stand in front of, not only present their dish, but then also answer questions about the dish. So, without further ado, I want to welcome in the reigning world dessert champion, Miss Bethany Boedicker. How are you?
Doing well. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. Have you come down off the sugar high of winning the dessert category?
A little bit.
I can.
I'm still kind of hanging on to it. It was pretty exciting.
I would hang on to that as long as humanly possible, because this was your second year competing, right?
Yes.
So, what got you competing in the first place?
To be quite honest, I had an ambassador give me a golden ticket. Otherwise, I would have never even known about the competition. I just got a phone call and she was like, "Hey, do you want to come compete?" And I was like, "All right, let's do it." So that's what got me in there.
Well, I mean, that's the good as opportunity as any. I mean, if you're going to be welcomed in with a golden ticket and compete, I mean, you've got to do it. And dessert is your category. So this is your second year you competed and won it in your second year. What is it that you do that made that phone ring in your normal non-championship life? What is it that you do that made that person say, "Hey, here's a golden ticket"?
I've known this person for quite some time. I've been in the hospitality industry at the hotel for about 10 years now. Um, Always evolving, like you said. I started out in my mid 20s. I'm now in my mid 30s. So I've had a lot of growing and a lot of different things happening. Working at a hotel, I get a lot of diverse activity going on. So I get to stretch those muscles every day, always upping the bar. Um, it's just daily life.
So dessert is your wheelhouse. That is your obviously like where your talent base really really is extraordinary is inside dessert. What draws you to dessert? Because it's very, a lot of people go back and forth on this. Pastries, sweets, desserts are very scientific in their methods, whereas cooking we tend to just be wild pirates throwing stuff all over the place and setting it on fire. When it comes to baking and pastry, it's much more specific. Is that what that comfort zone is for you?
Uh, I like a little bit of both, to be honest. Like I said, working at the hotel, my executive chef is more than happy to let me come play out in the kitchen. Nothing going on. We have a special event. We have one coming up on April 2nd, and he's like, "Yeah, you get to do soup today." So, just a little bit of mention to him, and he kind of just lets me go. Um, I'm a little bit multifaceted.
Mhm.
I worked on the line, I worked in banquets. But pastry is definitely my love. I just think it's a creative outlet. Um, it also, challenges the scientific, logical part of my brain while I still get to be creative. So it's kind of the best of both worlds a lot of days.
It really is. I mean, if you don't try baking or if you haven't gotten into pastry yet, it really does combine precision and creativity. Because you
Yes.
can't just go willy nilly when you're talking about a chemical response it takes for baking to happen. So you kind of have to really
No.
drill down and know your stuff. And, you know, year one, you go into World Food Championships, which was in Dallas there again, and you compete. And then now in year two, you go compete and win. How was it different this past year than your first year?
Well, my first year I won second place. This year I won first. I was a little blindsided, I guess, by what to expect my first year. I really didn't have a lot of background information on how the competition worked, how many teams there were. All I knew was the EAT methodology on how things were going to be judged. And so I tried to just, stand by that. Like, this is what we're looking at, and this is what I need to execute. This time, I was a little bit more prepared, I guess you could say,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more comfortable going in. Um, that's about it.
Well, I mean, that's pretty good going in really not knowing any background, anything what to expect in year one, finishing second, come right back your next year, win the category. Did you change much as far as what you what you put out in your competition rounds from year one to year two? Did you stay kind of true to that method that worked, or did you just completely clean slate new dishes?
It was clean slate, new dishes. My first year, I did like a creme brulee cheesecake that had a Nutella insert and like a flourless cake. My second round, and this year I stuck with what I do best, which is cake. I'm a cake artist. I mean, I'm a pastry chef, but cake is definitely my specialty. Flavors, that sort of thing. I mean, I can make them look pretty too, but I'm all about flavors.
Mhm.
So this year, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do what I do best and see where it takes me. And it took me to first place. So it was a good choice.
It did. Walk us through because this year you really only had the two cooks. In previous years, you've had, a signature and here's what we want you structured around, what we want you to make, and then when you go into the second round, you cook again. But this year it was just two. You had your opening round and your top 10 round. Did you do two different dishes, or was it the same dish for both rounds?
I did do two different dishes. Um, I thought long and hard about repeating my first round dish into my second. But I wanted to challenge myself to do something different. Um, So that's kind of how I came up with that.
So walk us through that the dish that really won it. So for people that haven't seen it, haven't heard about your dish, kind of give them a synopsis of what won you the championship.
Well, to be completely honest, my first opening round dish scored a perfect, and it scored higher than my final round dish. Um, I got 101 on my first cake, and then I got I think a 99 on my second. But my first cake was a cinnamon chili cake, and it had a horchata whipped cream and dulce de leche. And then I infused the ganache also with cinnamon and cayenne, and it had a pecan praline inside of it as well. And then my winning dish was a chocolate hibiscus cake with Jelly Queen's raspberry jam. I know that's a really traditional um, flavor pairing, but just upping it with the floral notes of the
Hmm.
hibiscus and then, taking that jam and infusing it into the ganache. Like I wanted to punch that jam into everything that I could. So I infused it in the ganache. I infused it with hibiscus as like I guess almost like a compote. And then I also infused it in the Swiss meringue that I put on top
And well,
just to kind of break up all the chocolate.
that's a smart thing to do because number one, hibiscus can get lost very easily. And you'll hear a lot of times, when you go to a commercial place or something like that, you'll hear hibiscus this or hibiscus that, and you really don't get necessarily hibiscus out of it. But then you also have very strong flavors in chocolate and very strong flavors in raspberry. That's a fantastic balance. I really like what you did in the first cake because I'm a big fan of any kind of spice, any kind of heat, especially when you're incorporating it into sweets. That way you get a really good balance of a savory, maybe heat versus that sweet. So it's pretty easy to see where you averaged out basically between the two at a perfect 100 all the way across the board. And
Yeah.
now you're standing in front of these master judges, which were some pretty significant names in the industry. What was that like for you?
Uh, it was a little intimidating. Um, Gosh, you think of all the things that you're gonna say, and then when you're asked the question, you're kind of like, you just kind of stutter and stammer through and give it your best, I guess. But it was really cool. I really enjoyed the master judge portion of the judging.
They had a lot of really great things to say too, which was really nice because it felt like everybody kind of walked away kind of gleaning some knowledge from that master judge panel that is only going to make them better going forward. And going forward for you is a little different from everybody else because you're going forward staring down your very first final table in only your second year at the World Food Championships. And
Yes.
how daunting does that feel?
Not gonna lie, it's pretty daunting. I don't feel as I don't know, in the loop as my competitors. It's a little bit weird when we have the Zoom calls because they all seem to know each other and have some more background information that I don't have. So um, I would just kind of sit there and listen and watch, see what anybody has to say.
But the strong silent type does tend to play well in these kind of competitions. What kind of are you doing any kind of practicing as you look for that? Are you focusing on basic skill sets? What's kind of like your way of making your path to final table?
Well, like I said, working at the hotel, I'm pretty familiar with the Moose Bouche.
Mhm.
We do have a fine dining restaurant upstairs. Like I said, I have the ability to do a lot of different things. So when I heard brisket, I live in Texas. I'm like, yeah, I know brisket. Pickling, I know that. So that was kind of cool. I'm pretty good with picking out flavor profiles. So the recreate dish, I was like, okay, good, good. But the tasting course threw me off a little bit. Not because I don't know what it is, but I just don't have enough information yet to, even consider practicing anything.
Mhm.
I'm worried about the protein.
Well, that's the thing when you're at a level where you're competing for the top. You're competing for that big, ginormous $100,000 foam check. Who knows what kind of fantastic opportunities and doors that opens? You always got to look for those curveballs. And I think with anything, it comes back to your cooking chops, knowing the basics, like you said, pickling, understand pickling, understanding different ways to cook a protein, regardless of what it is, just ways to work it. Understanding sauces and reductions and all those fun things that'll be what plates a dish well. And with what you do there at the hotel, I think that you've got probably as wide a knowledge base as we're going to see in the competition. So I think that's going to help you in the
Well, good. I'm really glad to
end.
hear that. I was like, yes, I've been training for this moment
Pretty much.
without knowing.
I mean, bouncing around all the different stations there in the hotel and things like that. I mean, that's kind of exactly what you're doing is training for your championship moment. And, you know, so when you left Dallas in November, you left World Foods, and you know that you've won the category, and but then you wake up almost like that next Monday, Tuesday, somewhere in there, and you're like, okay, back into normal life, the grind. Was any, how was it going back into work back after winning the category for you? What did it look like for you, a normal work day after that?
It looked like all my cook friends and my managers, razzing me number one, master chef in the kitchen now. Anytime anybody has a question, oh, go ask master chef. It's like a running joke. They're all super supportive though, but they were very excited for my win. Going back into the kitchen, I mean, it's what I love to do. So I really have a passion for cooking in all kinds of aspects. And I don't know that it's any different. I'm just constantly on the grind every day doing that. So, um, now that I know the amuse bouche and like things like that are coming up, of course, I'm asking like, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Getting a little bit more input, um, that sort of thing.
So away from cakes, which is your specialty, what
Yeah.
is after cakes? What's your next favorite kind of sweet thing to really work on?
Mm, I really enjoy doing chocolate work. Um, Living in such a humid climate, though, there's only like a few months out of the year where it's really viable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not something I can work on too often. Sugar work, too, same thing. Galveston is so humid, like 90% of the year. It just doesn't last. So those are two things that I have a lot of fun with. Um, Baking wise, I can tell you that I hate making bread. It's my least favorite thing to
Yep.
do, even if everybody loves it. Uh, but I mean, I like doing plated desserts too, just kind of playing with components, putting different things together. I really enjoy like our fine dining aspect of our restaurant. I get to put out a lot of different things there, see how the guest receives it. Does it move? Does it not move? That sort of thing.
What is your, when you get to finally go out and enjoy food somewhere, what type of food is your favorite style of food?
Uh, Probably American or French, to be honest. I live along the Gulf
Mm-hmm.
Coast, so everything on this island is typically fried seafood or seafood with sauce. I would say 90% of our food here is seafood, which I like, now and again, but I definitely have to fight really hard to search out different things here on the island.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Gastropub, I like gastropub kind of food as well. I'm really into like comfort food with a twist, I guess you could say. I like basics. I don't like food that's super frilly. Um, it's complicated. I don't like
Yep.
complicated food.
Yeah, that's me. I'm a street food guy. I love street food. If you can give me crazy off the wall sideways street food, I'm happy. So I totally get that. And where can people follow you on kind of your journey here? Do you have social media they can follow?
Yes, I'm on Instagram. I'm just under my name, Bethany Boedicker. I have pictures of my work on there, pictures of me at work on there, just a lot of different things.
Well, I mean, that's going to be a good thing because people do really want to see not only your championship competition, they love to see the kind of work that you do in between. And it's like you said, you're waiting to slowly hear the different details coming out about final table. There's three competitions. You know that it's going to be there in Bentonville, Arkansas, and that it's going to have a lot to do with the food scene in that particular area. And that food scene is all about fresh and farm to table and things like that. And you hear that from a lot of areas, but we as we're learning, a lot of the chefs in that area actually have their own farms. So it means you're going to get to work with the freshest of the fresh produce and things of that nature. Does that kind of get you excited as your chef side starts kicking in?
Yeah, absolutely. I really embrace the farm to table movement. I mean, living 20 miles outside of Houston, there's a few places that we get farm to table food from, microgreens and stuff like that. Certain produce we're able to get, but um, yeah, it's exciting to try a new region and see what they have to offer.
Well, we are looking forward to seeing you compete. It'll start with day one, it'll be 10 people. And then after the first challenge, it'll go down to five. And after that challenge, it'll go down to the final three that will then compete to find out who the grand champion is. If you want to stay current with what's going on in the world of food sport, you want to follow the World Food Championships on all the social medias, and then definitely do this now. Bookmark www.worldfoodchampionships.com because there is so much information that's coming out. All of the dates, the rules, the guidelines, things like the Taste of America challenges, they're all right there. So make sure that you're staying up to date by liking and sharing and following World Food Championships on social media. Now, another question for you on that whole baking and sweet side, because it's not often we get to talk to somebody who's on that baking and sweet side. How is your pie game? Like pies? See, that's my wheelhouse. Is I love pie. So how's your pie game?
It's all right. We're definitely stretching that muscle because tomorrow is Pie Day.
Mm-hmm.
So at the hotel, we are participating in Pie Day. I just picked four pies and we're gonna run with it. Always do from scratch dough and fillings. So it's exciting. I'm all right at pie. I wouldn't say that's like my jam, but I do
What's your
okay.
favorite pie?
Apple,
Apple. Yep. Yep.
easy.
Got to be a good apple. I will be looking at your social media to see that pie, all these pies that you make for Pie Day, and excited to do
Yes.
that. So, guys, make sure you give Bethany a follow because before you know it, she's going to be in Bentonville, Arkansas to compete at final table versus the other 9 competitors that won their categories at the World Food Championships. And you can root along with the journey. Thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you. You too.
And, guys, I will see you next time.